All right, this is show number 858 today, and we're going to bring back one of our favorites new to the show in 2024. So let's start 2025 off. We'll let him be our first guest.
Oh, how about that? First guest of 2025 is Brooks Austin, the film guy. What is up, Brooks? How are you?
How about that? Popping a bottle with Brooks Austin. That's pretty cool. I feel honored, gentlemen. I feel honored.
As you should. Brooks is in New Orleans, as you see the skyline behind him. Look, we love talking football with Brooks. There are stories other than football going on in New Orleans, but I know, Brooks, it's been an exhausting, emotional 24 hours for you. We're not going to belabor the point on any of that. Before we, though, get to the games, I will just say, what does the feel like? Change date, change time, all that's going on. I mean, just what's the general feel?
Relatively somber, I think is the right word. Somber. Just kind of like not empty, but people walk around relatively quiet when they see each other and see one another out in public. I do expect not an empty stadium, but a not full capacity football stadium. Walk around Caesars last night here in New Orleans. It was very obvious. You talked to a couple Georgia fans. You talked to a couple Notre Dame fans. It wasn't the ones who drove here that are having problems moving their, logistics around and getting back home. It's those who booked flights and trying to move flights around. So if you drove out here like I did, the extending the stay was no problem. If you flew out here, trying to get your plane your plane ticket changed is a little bit more difficult. So I have spoke to a lot of people, yesterday and this morning that unfortunately are going to have to miss this football game because they weren't able to move their flights.
This playoff has been all chalk outside of the Texas meltdown yesterday, and this game is a virtual pick now, and a lot of that is Gunnar Stockton. Yeah. Now, Kirby Smart's 6-2 in the college football playoffs. It's a different Georgia team, though. The defense isn't as dominant as it has been. It's a unit that goes for their fewest rushing yards over the last decade in Georgia, and now they're playing a Notre Dame team that looks like it kind of belongs. If Carson Beck was starting this game, would it have a different feel?
Honestly, I think, and this is going to sound crazy, the passing department would be much, much more favorable and formidable with Carson. We all know that. Everyone that watches football can see that. I mean, he's an NFL processor at the position. But, man, you're talking about running the ball and playing defense. I think that's what's going to be required to win this football game. And even in that Texas matchup, you saw in the second half, Georgia's traditional run game opened up tremendously in that second half because of the at least willingness and threat of a potential quarterback run off the backside of a lot of these zone reads, which Georgia is a zone football team. That's what they run. Their base plays are inside zone plays. So for the last 2 years, those backside edge defenders have been able to run to the football free, right, and do so phased by a quarterback. Well, now they're going to be held responsible out of that backside. So I think some of these front side runs for Georgia, at least against Texas, who I believe is the best defense in the country, are going to open up a little bit more now that Gunner's going to be there. So I think it's a little bit more formidable in terms of hey, we got to run the ball and play defense against a football team in Notre Dame who's probably got the same recipe for success.
Kirby Smart actually said this team is built like an SEC team. When you watch the tape guy, are they built like an SEC team?
They look like Georgia. That's what I've been telling my folks all week. I mean, and people think like Notre Dame, they don't play nobody, whatever. I mean, part of my job is covering recruiting. And if you cover Notre Dame, or if you cover recruiting, you'll know that Notre Dame is a blue chip roster, what we would deem as a blue chip roster. As long as I have paid attention to recruiting, Notre Dame has finished inside the top 12. That's what they do. So, like, NIL included, like, even when that era came around in college football, Notre Dame is perennially, enlisted in that top 12 of the recruiting rankings. Now, are they a top 5 roster in this sport? No, not normally. Those are more resided for the Alabama, Georgias, Ohio States, Oregons of the world. But, man, are they well coached? And here's the most important thing for me, and in college football in general, those SOBs play hard, boys. They play hard through the echo of the whistle, and they play right. They are gap sound and fundamentally sound on both sides of the football. So when you go against the Notre Dame football team, you're going to face a top 12 roster that you're going to have to beat. They're not going to beat themselves. So I expect a really, really good football game from both these teams, which if you look at them, if you describe their identity as a football team, you would probably have a lot of similar traits for both of these teams.
If I can just follow up real quickly, the difference between top 5 roster and top 12 where they are usually. Is that just skill positions on offense usually? Is that where the separation is? Because offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, they're still pretty good there, right?
I mean, normally the separation between like a top 5 roster and a top 12 roster are how many 5-stars and like top 50 players you're signing. It could be scattered all across the board. Like Georgia's doing it top 5 perennially with offensive line, defensive line, safeties, linebackers, and a couple of good running backs, right? Ohio State's doing that with quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, skill position players, and maybe an edge rusher or two. You follow me? Yeah. Like your roster strategy might be different across the board, but Notre Dame's just finishing up instead of signing, 15 guys inside the top 100, maybe they're signing 12, and that's why they're finishing top 12 instead of inside that top 5. It's just a different echelon of upper tier recruiting.
Brooks Austin is with us, the film guy at Brooks Austin BA on social media. Go to his YouTube channel as well, and make sure you subscribe and set your alerts so you know when he drops content there. The Film Guy Network on YouTube, The Film Guy Network. He is in New Orleans on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. This has not been a traditional Kirby Smart rush defense. They're mid-tier in the SEC. I was just looking before you came on down the roster of backs they faced. Jarquez Hunter from Auburn, Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. The guys at Alabama, the guys at Texas. Jeremiah Love is among, if not the best backs that Georgia will have faced this year.
Yeah, I've been talking to a few folks down here that cover Notre Dame. I don't know if he's 100% healthy, both in physicality and wellness. I think there's some sickness that's going on there. I also think he was relatively banged up coming out of Indiana. So if you had to make me do it, I'm probably like an 85% Jeremiah Love today. But even if you get 100% Jeremiah Love, that's not a guy that they're going to give 25 totes to. Like, he's not a bell cow workhorse type dude. He's an explosive, dynamite, firecracker type guy. And he's guaranteed to get one of those types of football plays in this game. But I expect him to be relatively banged up. But no, man, they can run the football. And you mentioned Georgia's struggles. It's not just, teams can run the ball against these guys. No, you got to have a quarterback that's a factor in the run game. If you've got that, you can go for about 250 against these boys this year. That's what the facts have been. Alabama can run the football with the quarterback. They got loose on these boys. Hell, UMass got loose on these boys with quarterback run this year. So Georgia Tech followed it up the next week with 250 plus on the ground via the quarterback run. Then they see Texas the next week, and Texas is like, all right, we're going to give it to Wisner 20 times today. No, you're not. Not against Georgia. If it's just the running back, they're going to box you up. But if you can use the quarterback's legs, like Riley Leonard certainly can, and Notre Dame certainly can, you can have some success. There's no doubt about that, at least this year.
Well, on the other side, too, we talk about this Notre Dame defense. And look, and I think that it's one of the best defenses in college football, but I can't get over going back to the USC game. They gave up 557 against Trojans. 2 pick sixes late kind of expanded that. If you didn't watch the game, it looked like it got out of whack. But, man, that game was coming down to the wire. Was that just an outlier, you think, for this Notre Dame defense?
Well, they're starting nose tackle preseason All-American Howard Cross was out for that football game. So when you give up 250 on the ground, not having your only 300-pound starter at the nose tackle position might be a little bit of the reason why. However, I think most of the yardage in that football game they were creating creases. They can get moved now. This isn't a huge Notre Dame defensive line, and they lost Riley Mills, their starting defensive tackle, who I would argue is their best run defender, and he leads the team in sacks. But this is a 6'6", 295-pound, 3-tech who plays with a tremendous amount of high effort and intensity, and is their team captain. They're going to play without that guy today. So we'll see. I expect there to be some run game, open it up. But, guys, when I watched that USC football game on tape, I was like, all right, I expect Lincoln to get loose on this guy because this defensive coordinator now, Golden, guess what he's going to do, boys? He's going to line up for 95% of the snaps today, and he's going to play man-to-man defense. So he's going to get in your face, and he's going to try to cover you. And if you can create man-to-man beaters, right, if we can create meshes, rubs, picks, all those different things, you can create explosive plays. And that's kind of Lincoln's bag, to be honest with you. So I expect Mike Bobo. I put it at the feet of Mike Bobo, as I did Kurt Signetti against Indiana. How many different man beaters can you design? That's your job as an offensive coordinator, not asking your guys to go win one-on-ones, giving them plays that create one-on-one winners for them.
I don't even know if you watched the game in its entirety because it wasn't a playoff game, but Were you surprised by the outcome of the Alabama-Michigan game?
Don't test my hustle, man. Don't test my hustle, man.
Of course he watched it.
I am tremendously surprised. First of all, do you have any under center formations? Why are we in the shotgun in a torrential downpour in our own end? That's my first question. The other thing, where is like the general progression of Jalen Milroe? And I guess you could put it on him, but like the whole reason Michael Penix chose, Kalen DeBoer 2 times over at Indiana and Washington was because that guy obviously progressed his mind and progressed his game as a football player. If you watch Michael Penix play right now, accuracy might be a problem. He is missing some throws. But by God, if that sucker ain't clicking through his reads day one when he went into the NFL, if there is anything we know about Michael Penix, it's that he's really, really talented. But damn if he don't know the game of football and be able to process it, pick it, and read it. Now, that might be just innate of Michael Penix. That might just be Michael Penix. But where did that progression happen at all for Jalen Milroe? And I have that question kind of across the board with the roster. Like how hard are they practicing? How consistently well are they practicing? How consistently well are they game planning every single week? Like I think this up and down trajectory that you have as a football program, like you guys mentioned it earlier, 3 losses to teams in which you were favored by more than 14 points. That's lack of consistency within the building, man. That's all of that across the board. Those are my biggest questions about what happened this year, what went down this year for Alabama.
As Darren says in the MyBookie.ag chat room, Brooks is a certified ball knower. Of course he was watching the game.
Of course he was watching the game.
The Film Guy Network on YouTube. The Film Guy Network. Go subscribe, set your alerts so you know when he drops content. At Brooks Alston, BA. He's headed over to the Superdome for this afternoon's Georgia Notre Dame college football quarterfinal playoff game. Glad you were safe, Brooks. Enjoy the game. We'll talk again soon.
Y'all boys be good. Have a good one.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Brooks with us on the Johnston RVCenter.com hotline.